Hey everyone, Pugs here with two new reviews for y'all. Today I'm covering Enemy-in-Law and Mermaid and Barnacle Boy 6, the motion picture. Man, that's a mouthful. But anyway, these two episodes don't really have all that much in common. Hate when that happens because then I never know what to say in this introduction section. I guess it just means that these are going to be two very different experiences. Maybe. Well, let me just move on to the part where I say thank you to everyone who's watching today, who's liked or commented on my videos, who's subscribed to the channel. Y'all are great. And now that I've done that, let me just get right into it. The first of today's episodes is Enemy-in-Law, which I think is a fun little title. The title card of this episode is also similar to Welcome to the Chum Bucket, which has nothing to do with anything, but just something I noted. Obviously, it's because of the role that the Chum Bucket and Plankton play in both episodes, since the background is of the Chum Bucket walls. Okay, now I'm rambling about nothing, let me bring it back. So, this episode is interesting. All I gotta say, but not really, of course, is that it's way before its time, because why on earth is Plankton, who's the same age as Mr. Krabs, getting with his mom? He really is the embodiment of that one meme with Shadow the Hedgehog. It's linked in the description if you have no idea what I'm talking about. So he's just like that, except, perhaps not exactly like that, if you know what I mean. Anyway, let me get myself together here and talk about Enemy-in-Law for real now. So, the beginning of this episode is pretty fun, with Plankton using a giant robot to try and force people to eat at the Chum Bucket. I thought that was pretty entertaining, especially with how it doesn't work at all. This beginning bit feels like something you'd see in, the Powerpuff Girls or something. I don't know how to describe what I mean by that, so let me move on. This episode does its best impression of animated sitcoms by having Karen and Plankton bicker like the old married couple that they are. And in this episode, Plankton is a pretty egregiously horrible husband towards Karen, given that he literally becomes infatuated with another woman. Oh, infatuated with and actively pursues another woman. And as far as we know, the two don't have an open relationship, and considering that this is an episode from the mid-2000s, they definitely do not have an open relationship. I love how Mama Krabs, as I'll be calling her in this episode because that's what I feel like doing, enters this episode. She's just trying to get money from Mr. Krabs. Like mother, like son, I suppose. And I really like how this episode gives Mama Krabs a lot of character. I think we need more of her, honestly. The bit with Plankton looking through the telescope and seeing a live-action crab is pretty clever. I liked that joke. Plankton then tries to woo Mama Krabs, and his attempt is very bad. That's all I can say. And I don't mean bad as in unenjoyable, though honestly this part of the episode isn't all that enjoyable or funny, but I mean bad as in Plankton literally has 0 brain cells firing when it comes to how to talk to another person. Given what we saw in Plankton's army, this is pretty in character for him. Even though I didn't find this part of the episode to be particularly good, I did find it funny when, after Plankton's multiple failed attempts, when he finally succeeds, he's all like, I'm smooth. Like, boy, if you don't get the fuck out of here, no you ain't. Also, the part where Mama Krabs is playfully like, are you spying on me? And we cut to a bunch of different feeds of her in the Chum Bucket is pretty funny. There are actually a lot of funny moments in this episode. Mr. Krabs shoving his wallet in SpongeBob's mouth is hilarious, and then him using it as an excuse just makes the moment even better. I love how he literally stole a hat off of a corpse to give to his mother as well. This man is so cheap, and I suppose he also hasn't learned much from one Krabs trash either. I also like that that joke was a cutaway gag, because I love a good cutaway gag. And then I love when Mr. Krabs tells SpongeBob he's working late with no overtime, and SpongeBob just launches himself at the door, and then we get a cutaway. Like, that was another good moment. The next part of Enemy-in-Law feels reminiscent of Squilliam Returns, although with less stakes. I love how Plankton gets all pissy that Mama Krabs doesn't recognize him. Beyond that, though, this first part of the scene drags. I say first part because this lasts all the way to when we have what is probably one of my absolute favorite exchanges in this entire show, which is that one part between Mr. Krabs, Plankton, Mama Krabs, and SpongeBob. Y'all know the one. And if you don't, it's in the description. And the fact that they do the joke twice makes it even better. It feels like a new and improved version of the already great exchange in Imitation Crabs. Once we move past this joke, though, I'm left with the weird feeling and thought of, why is this woman dating someone the same age as her son? I mean, I guess we could issue out a pass here since Mama Krabs doesn't know who Plankton is and therefore probably doesn't know his age, but the situation is still just weird. Thank God that everyone involved in this situation is a middle-aged adult or older, or else I would have some real concerns. And while I'm here, this episode also goes against what we'll be learning later in Friend or Foe by saying that the secret formula is an old Krabs family recipe. I don't really care about this continuity problem though, firstly because this episode came first, and secondly because the show has never cared about continuity, so why should I? The next few minutes of this episode, while enjoyable, are not particularly funny. Seeing Mr. Krabs be protective over his mother is sweet enough, I suppose, despite the weird situation. And we see him put his foot in his mouth when he realizes that Plankton didn't know that Mama Krabs knew the formula, which is nice enough. I like the joke where Mr. Krabs is like, nah, I'm gonna act like a man, and then makes to attack Plankton before just jumping in his mom's lap and begging her not to marry Plankton. This episode also low-key has a feminist undertone when you think about it, as Mr. Krabs and Plankton are doing all this fighting over Mama Krabs without considering that what she herself thinks about the situation, and acting like they have some kind of claim over her. And in the end, she solves the entire situation herself. I love the bit with the robot because it was hilarious, like, sorry Plankton, but your robot has more game than you do. And then I love how Mama Krabs ends up kicking Plankton's butt, throwing him right back to Karen, who also ends up kicking his butt. A great bit of universal justice all around. There's also something to be said about how this episode reveals that Plankton's obsession over the formula ruins all of his interpersonal relationships. It ruined the one he was developing with Mama Krabs, it ruined his friendship with Mr. Krabs, as we'll come to find out later, and it keeps a constant strain on his relationship with Karen. It's almost kind of sad in a way, and this is something that future episodes will explore, like Lockdown for Love, or Single Celled Anniversary. Man, lots of big things for this little episode. So, to bring everything together, I've got to say that Enemy-in-Law is a decently enjoyable episode, though it does kinda have a mad middle part. Other than that, I think there's so many great jokes and moments in this episode. However, the plot itself is kind of weird, just a bit. Not as weird as other episodes, cough cough hooky, but still weird. Taking this all into consideration, I think that Enemy-in-Law makes a good addition to my great tier, where it comes through with a score of 8 out of 10. At times, I feel like it could be a good tier episode, and so putting it on the cusp like this is the best placement. Next up, we've got the last of the Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy sextet, Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy 6, The Motion Picture. A true end of an era. I love how this whole set of episodes ends on a movie. The crew is very ahead of their time in that regard, given the proliferation of superhero movies nowadays, and Hollywood's inability to just let things go. But let me move on before I get into my thoughts on that. This episode begins with a fun little segment of Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy stopping crime. Petty crimes, but crimes nonetheless. It makes me think of those X and Gotham videos that were going around some time ago. They are linked, of course. Anyway, I love that SpongeBob and Patrick are in a fan club for Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy, a fan club that we will be hearing much about in the future, even if it's not the exact same fan club between episodes. I think it's cute that they are able to hang around like-minded individuals, and it's always nice to see that their world doesn't exclusively revolve around members of the main cast, you know? Also, I love how offended they get by actors playing Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy, which is fair because they just got finished watching a video about the real heroes, so like, what gives? But I think it's hilarious that they end up getting kicked out of the fan club for being against the actors. Guess they aren't so like-minded after all. One thing I like about this episode is that SpongeBob and Patrick are now just kind of friends with Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy, to the point where they can just show up at shady shoals and nothing happens to them. They've come a long way since the first of these episodes, and I like the implication of development. The exchange between an angry SpongeBob and Patrick and Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy is great. I love the actors part. It's just hilarious and iconic, and I love the horror shared by the heroes upon hearing that horrible word. The plot of this episode is low-key kind of cute because of SpongeBob and Patrick's enthusiasm to make this movie a success. I love how they get lots of other characters involved in their quest as well. I really like how Mr. Krabs channels his culture shock self by proposing that Pearl be a star in the movie. Oh wait, he didn't do that. Yeah, I'm not a fan of how certain episodes make Mr. Krabs a really bad father for no reason. That joke wasn't all that funny. But at least SpongeBob keeps the offer to star for Pearl, which makes the bad taste of the joke wash away. I also love how Sandy is in charge of explosives, and in the way that SpongeBob gets Squidward to be a part of the movie is peak manipulation. I love when SpongeBob's on his troll Bob shit. Squidward working the makeup for Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy is hilarious, and I love how he ends up just using power tools. This episode is also full of one of my favorite kinds of gags, random explosions. I also love Sandy's new job, because I love seeing things blow up. There's a reason that I love the Fast and Furious movies, and the Mission Impossible movies, and the John Wick, and the Equalizer movies. I just love action movies where things blow up. Though, I guess in the last two franchises, things don't blow up all that much. Still. Anyway, I love the running gag of boom equaling a literal boom. It's really nice to see all the characters come together like this to put this movie on. Like, even Plankton is here. It reminds me a lot of a future episode, Tentacle Vision. And watching this episode makes me think of how many little references to the creators of the Cosmic Shake put in that game. Because in the Karate Bikini Bottom level, it uses the Take 5003 scene cutboard thing. I don't know what they're called. Anyway, Watching everyone try to make this movie varies from being somewhat entertaining to decently funny, at least until we find out that Patrick had the lens cap on the camera the entire time. Impressively, this episode manages to pull off having an element as frustrating as that without making me legitimately frustrated. SpongeBob's ensuing freakout is hilarious because of how absurd it is. Poor guy just wanted to put on a good movie. And I love how it's Mermaid Man who gets everything back on track, given his usual, senility. Moving on, I just gotta point out this background art. I love the background of the Krusty Krab during the movie premiere. Like, the lights from the Krusty Krab make it look really cool. And I think it's sweet that Mr. Krabs closes the restaurant early for the premiere of the movie. I like to think that it shows that he has pride in this creation and cares enough about SpongeBob's interests to show it, but it's just plot convenience. I also love that Pearl is so tall that she blocks the projector a little bit. It's just a funny little joke there. And overall, it's very satisfying to see everyone sitting there watching the movie they made. The horrible production values of the movie make the entire thing better, and I love how you can tell that there was love put into the movie even if the end result isn't all that great. And I love that no one ends up raining on SpongeBob's parade in the end, even if we see that the rest of the audience didn't like what they just saw. Reminds me of another future episode, Best Day Ever. I really like Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy 6, more than I expected to. It's funny and engaging, and also an excellent send-off to this little series of episodes. Yes, Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy make future appearances, but this is the end of the road for the series of episodes with the Roman numerals, and I think this episode does a good job at closing it out. It demonstrates the evolution of SpongeBob and Patrick's friendship with these two heroes and the heroes' return to the public spotlight, and it also gets even more characters involved in the plot than Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy 5 did. I can't ask for much more. That's why this episode is going to be placed in my great tier, where it comes over a score of 8.5 out of 10. As always, gonna end this review with some closing thoughts of mine, although I don't think I have many. These are just a pair of episodes that don't inspire much thought in me. They're just some great Season 4 episodes. I think it's funny how much Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy 6 kind of predicted our current entertainment landscape, at least when it comes to superhero movies. I mean, yes, obviously superhero movies existed before this episode was made and before the MCU, but come on, this so clearly applies to the MCU that it's comical. And also, I guess just biographical movies in general. Why are there so many of those? Who's actually interested in watching them? Because I'm not. But yeah, I mean, I feel like that's literally all I have to say. I feel like I've expounded on everything I possibly can with these episodes. So I guess I'll just go ahead and end the review now, and I will see you guys in the next review.